welcome to a Greater Reality Healing, Living, and Helping online meeting. The first thing I want to mention is that we are not planning on meeting in December. We will meet twice in November, but we will not meet in December, and then we will resume our meetings in January. Okay. So this program helps people to take higher energy paths during their earthly experience. Doing that, especially after big changes that seem like losses, can create quantum leaps in your learning, growth, and service to others. Over time, this transformational journey can help you adopt a more accurate worldview based on contemporary understandings about the big picture of life and live accordingly, whatever that means for you. See Article 19, The Great News About the Nature of Reality at soulproof.com. It can help you experience shorter and lightened grieving after loved ones change worlds and other big changes that seem like losses. Fine-tune yourselves physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually so that you have the vitality to handle life's demands and share your greatest gifts or your soul's missions. Become more aware of, benefit from, and share life's silver linings that always accompany opportunities masquerading as adversity. Create the greatest life you have envisioned. The term you refers to your higher self or your eternal consciousness or soul. Fulfill your highest purposes for being on earth and make our world a better place. This is now practically possible as discussed in Article 125. 8 developments for widespread conscious living now. As enough people do this, widespread personal and planetary change will naturally unfold. The evidence-based information and holistic resources in this program can help you do this. This program is not designed to replace medical, psychotherapeutic care, or the services that Helping Parents Heal provide. Dr. Pitstick has worked with HPH for 11 years and recommends them as the best resource for parents, grandparents, and siblings after a child passes on. 3 30-minute parts of each online meeting include presentation, breakout groups, and Q&A. Breakout groups are not to be recorded, but the rest is, so that others can benefit from them. If you are concerned about anonymity, just show your first name in your Zoom window and block your video image. YouTube links for class recordings are under Greater Reality Programs at soulproof.com and soulphone.org. Subscribe to those newsletters for updates and more. I'd now like to introduce our presenter, Mark Pitstick, MADC. Mark has over 50 years of experience helping many people in hospitals, pastoral counseling settings, mental health centers, and holistic health clinics. To learn more, visit soulproof.com/about. Dr. Pitstick's ebooks, audiobooks, audio programs, and documentary film are free at soulproof.com/shop.
Thank you very much, Allison, and good day and welcome to everyone. If you can, please enable your video so we can see you. It's much nicer to see your face, see your reactions and so on, so I appreciate that. And I wonder how many of you is this your first time? So if you would raise your hand or raise your digital hand. So one, how about everybody else or anybody else first time at one of these meetings? Okay. I don't see any digital hands going up. So to be clear, this isn't a webinar, it's a community meeting, because that's what we're building is a community of people around the world, people who are awakening to the big picture of life, people who realize their souls and want to live the greatest life of their dreams. They want to heal, become their best, help others in our world. So it's a big, lofty mission. So again, kudos to you for being here, to being aware of it. Now, please have a pen, paper, or other way to record important information on hand because I will share that later. So Allison mentioned optimally healing, living, and helping, and that may sound impossible to you, especially if one of several things. you're deeply grieving right now. That is, your grief is fresh and deep. You're battling physical, emotional, or mental imbalances. You've been scared by fear-based and erroneous religious teachings. And I say religious with a quotation marks because the line popped up to me. I'm creating a new article on this. Have you been traumatized by fearful, quote, religious teachings? And then what you can do about it. And the line is, if teachings are fearful, then they're not really religious, because religious means learning more, connecting with the divine and the sacred in life. And there's nothing scary about that. So if you have any of those things I just mentioned, I understand very well because I experienced all three. And there was a time when I was an atheist, agnostic, gave up, wanted spaceships to beam me off of Earth, whatever. Briefly thought about suicide. Like, I don't want to be here. However, I kept searching for evidence-based information about the nature of reality. I searched for and trained to know holistic resources. I prayed each day and asked, when I realized or believed again that I did receive help from the light, angels, and so on. And this program will share all those with you so you can do the same. Now, these meetings don't teach you everything you need to optimally heal, live, and help, because it's a lot of information. You know, depending on where you're at, what your needs are, what your goals are, it really can vary. But these meetings do provide the information, resources, show you where you can find them, provide support. You'll have in the sharing sessions and the Q&A and community. You know, some people in their sharing sessions, they've clicked and they're like, hey, would you like to, you know, share emails? And we're open to that, because that's part of the idea, growing your tribe, meeting other kindred spirits who make this earthly experience much more sensible, meaningful, fun. So the key for this meeting is that you are on Earth right now for meaningful reasons. And that's really important. That's one of the 10 items of the great news that we describe in article number 19 at soulproof.com. Because that's such a crucial point. You know, some people think this lifetime is random, chaotic, meaningless, but in fact, it's the exact opposite. And that's so important to know. So I'm going to share in this meeting, this presentation, how you can clearly identify your greatest gifts. And I will use different terms for this. And say your greatest gifts, your special talents, your soul's missions, your reasons for being here. Those are all describing the same thing. So I'll share how you can identify those and then how you can fulfill those. And it's definitely a stepwise process, but most people find that if they're just doing what they came here to do, even a little bit, it's like, a sigh of relief, you know. They feel much more peace, joy, and meaning right off the bat. So this is key number 12 in article number 72, Greater Reality Healing, sharing your greatest gifts, your soul's missions. And anytime I think about this, this topic, I remember a woman many years ago. I used to travel around the country and give weekend workshops, mainly at Unity churches, but also health expos and other places. So we had a group of 30 or 40, and we were talking about that, how you identify your soul's missions. And this woman in the front, she's about 70 years old, she said, you know, I've tried and tried, but I have no idea what my soul's missions are. And so when I present, even now, I listen to my intuition, but I also listen to my team. I ask in my angels, guides, master teachers in the light, and my higher self. And so this just little suggestion came about. I said, well, ask her what she's been doing to date. And I said, well, tell me, what do you do? And she said, well, that's just the thing. I'm so busy, I don't have time to figure out my soul's mission. And I said, well, what do you do? And she said, I'm on my 15th person now. It's been over years, family and friends who are dying or really sick, and I help them. If they're terminal, I stay with them till they pass. And and then she kind of paused, and the group started laughing. And she said, oh, maybe that's my soul's mission? I said, yeah, maybe. So that could be the point for you. You may already be sharing your gifts, greatest gifts, but don't realize it, or you minimize it, because some people think your soul's missions have to be, great things. You have to be like Tesla or Einstein and so on, Gandhi. No, the little things really make a difference. One of my teachers, Ram Dass, said if the Buddha were to come back today, he might be a bus driver who smiles at everybody that comes and goes, has a kind word for them, and just reminds them there is hope, there is love on this planet. So anyway, keep that in mind. Or perhaps you want to deepen your focus and impact. So we're going to cover all those kinds of things. Now, the evidence, because as I mentioned, this is evidence-based information. We'll always try to have evidence behind what I'm talking about versus, it's just someone else's opinion. And this comes from the clinical field in three areas. First of all, near-death experiences. As you know, many people have had clinical death, nearly died, saw the light, learned things, came back. And so we have a really great view of at least the initial stage of the afterlife from these people, especially those who have what are called documented NDEs, meaning while they were clinically dead, eyes closed in ER ICU, they sense their consciousness perceive things happening around them in the room, in another floor in the hospital, on top of the hospital, outside their home or hospital. And later, these details are verified by physicians or nurses. And 20 years ago, Dr. Ken Ring estimated that there were 10,000 well-documented cases like this. Well, now I have no idea how many there are, but the point is that we can trust their input about the nature of reality because they proved that their consciousness continued despite clinical death, and they perceived things happening when their eyes were closed and they're in a resuscitation area. And by the way, to further blow your mind, some of these people who had these documented NDEs were blind, and some had been blind from birth, and yet they were able to see when they were nearly dead. So, well, how cool is life set up? It really is. Also, another clinical category, what's called life between lives data, started by Dr. Michael Newton, PhD, author of Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls. And so he and his therapist, Dr. Newton, changed worlds a few years ago. And by the way, you can listen to our interview in the year 2000 at soulproof.com/radio shows. What a lovely man. But he and his therapist now have 60,000 cases from about 35 different countries. So these are people that had a 4-hour-long deep hypnosis, and I've had it done. I mean, I've been doing clinical hypnosis for 45 years, but I was shit-faced. I mean, my induction usually is 10 to 15 minutes to get a person deeply relaxed. This induction is an hour long, and I was just so out. So finally, when she said, okay, describe what was your first perception when your soul entered your mother's womb? And I thought, who is she asking? Because there's nobody home right now. I mean, I was just so disassociated with this human body and brain. So these people, again, 60,000 of them, described in great detail, what is it like in what I call the really real place, home with a capital H, heaven, wherever you want to call it, before we come to Earth, and then after we pass on. And there's just realms of data. Dr. Newton said that some of the best evidence for the veracity of this information comes from it's all independently reported. In other words, you have that many people from that many different countries coming in and saying this is what it's like, and they then compile the data and they see the definite trends, similarities. And then also from and then the life between lives data indicates, yeah, that's a thing, that we come here for good reasons. We have important missions, and that is such a key for whether your earthly experience is a wonderful heavenly one or more a hellish one or disappointing one, depressing one. Do you know and fulfill your reasons for being here? It's a really big thing. And then finally, evidential mediums, and that some mediums at least have highly verifiable information from people passed on, has been scientifically researched by my colleague Gary Schwartz, PhD, in his book, The Afterlife Experiments. And that was 25 years ago. Yeah, no, 35 years ago. So evidential mediums will often say, your grandmother's telling me that you're not, well, they would keep it more positive, that perhaps you want to consider doing this or this to create more meaning in your life. It's part of why your soul came here. So that's the clinical evidence. Then from the religious category, of course, different religions have shared, for example, Jesus in the Bible talking about let your light shine, don't hide it under a bushel, put it on a hillside so everyone can see. Excuse me. In Judaism, the story is told that souls identify why they're coming to earth, but then just before they come to earth, the angel of forgetfulness touches them on their upper lip, and that's why you have that little indentation up there. Because if you remembered everything, it would negate your lessons. It would make things too easy on earth. It's good to struggle. It's good to have to figure it out. And that's when you really know to a deeper level. And if any of you know stories from other religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc., Islam, please send those to me, mark@soulproof.com, because I've not had time to search, but I'm sure that this theme is in every major religion as well as, I need, Allison or Jim, make a note, please, for me to ask my Native American friends if indeed that's a theme in Native American cosmology. So, 2 parts to this key. First of all, identify what your highest callings are, and then next, begin to share them, as we mentioned, and know it's a journey. It's not just during this lifetime on Earth, it's for eternity. You're always growing, expanding, doing more, being able to do more. You could look at it as a calling. When I was a youth, I heard the term calling, but it was always related with a minister. Well, that minister had a calling, so he went to theology school. But then later I realized that we all have special callings. Now, to identify those, you can use the steps described in article number 21, again at soulproof.com, and then use my free audio program under Shop with the long title, Identify and Fulfill Your Soul's Highest Missions. And I'm going to show you in a moment where those are on the website, so you'll know where to find them, because there's a lot of information there. But again, that's article number 21 and the audio program, Identify and Fulfill Your Soul's Missions. But as an intro and to prepare you for the sharing session, I'd like you to, we'll just take a moment with your eyes closed, and I will ask you 4 questions. And what I want is for you to be aware of what pops up or floats in. In other words, we want to move beyond the brain. Those who've heard me talk before probably are tired of hearing it, but this is really important to know that the brain and 5 senses, as marvelous as they are, perceive much, much less than 1% of reality. So that's one reason so many things don't make sense, including, when loved ones suffer or pass, so on, things that don't seem consistent with a intelligent, caring, loving creator. But when you can see a little bit more, in other words, instead of looking through a pinhole, when you can see a silver dollar size, then you can say, as the Eastern mystics say, ah, so, aha, now I see. You become enlightened. You're seeing with your third eye, your spiritual eye. You're seeing more of the big picture of life. So that's what I want you to, we'll take a few slow, deep breaths. And then again, what pops up, what floats in. All right, so here we go, sitting up straight if you can with your eyes closed. And let's begin by taking 3 slow, deep breaths on your own, please. Put everything else that's going on in your life, what you're going to do after the meeting, what's happening in your life, just put that aside for a moment and just become aware of the answers to these 4 questions that will give you clues about what are your highest missions? What did your soul come here to do? What are your greatest gifts to share? So the first question, what are you naturally good at? Next, what would you do if money were no object? What kind of work, life work would you do? Again, you don't have to think about it. This doesn't take long. Your eternal self, your real self, knows the answers to all these. So it's just a matter of them popping up for your brain, for your waking human self to remember. Next, what would you do if you, as far as life work, helping others, serving, if you had only 1 year to live on Earth? And finally, what do you read and talk about in your spare time? What excites and interests you? That's another clue. Okay, great. So you can open your eyes, and in a few moments when we have our sharing sessions, then we'll invite you to share some of what popped up about this. By the way, notice the accurate conscious language, and that's key number 1 in this program, is to use accurate language that really reflects what we know about, not the nature of reality. So in the third question, I said, what would you do if you had only 1 year to live on Earth? So most people would term it, what would you do if you had only 1 year to live? Well, you don't have only 1 year to live. That's impossible. You have eternity. You have forever. No beginning, no end. So really important 2 words to add there. So it's really simple. When you do share your greatest gifts, at least part-time, you feel more peaceful, joyful, vital, and fulfilled. When you don't, you feel more boredom, creative discontent, malaise, maybe even depression. Also, some people never even think about this, and I understand why this isn't critical or judgmental at all, but being on Earth is tough. There's so much you have to do, daily demands just to get through the day, and then there's so much to distract you to get sidetracked, and that's why it's important to minimize your exposure to the news and TV and just worthless things that don't really matter but can be stimulating and entertaining, and focus on the big things in life. I'll tell you about a true case. Many years ago, I worked with, this is when I was a respiratory therapist working my way through pre-med and theology school. And I worked with a fellow named Forrest. He was about 65 years old. I think he was born about 1910. So, you know, he had been a kid when it was World War I, and I think he was in World War II. Big guy, tough guy, heavy drinker, heavy smoker, loved to hunt and fish. Very demanding, ungrateful. He had COPD, emphysema as a result of many years of smoking. And nobody wanted to work with him, nurses or techs, because he was a pain. He was a big, grumpy guy. He couldn't breathe. He was like, and we had to have oxygen and breathing treatments. And his job while he was awake was to try to breathe. And so, but I kind of liked him. We got talking about fishing and some reason I related to him. Well, over a couple years then, he would come in more and more. I'd see him in the ER, and then I'd see him on the floors when he was hospitalized. We got to know each other, and as he became more and more sick and closer to passing, it was this amazing transformation, almost angelic. He became appreciative. He became patient. He would say thank you. He'd get tears in his eyes. I really appreciate what you're doing. And we talked, and he said, you know, I never really thought about why I was here, and I never really thought about how I could help others. And now I'm thinking about things like that, and it's too late. So you don't want to be like him. Just remember Forrest's story. However, on the topic of life is much more vast and amazing than we can fathom. Maybe it was his soul's mission to be that amazing character. And here we are talking about him 50 years later. So maybe he did make his impact. And that's why I say, don't take score too soon. And we humans don't have a sufficient expansion of perception to really judge things. So anyway, I can't get into that too much. All right, so closing up this intro, you're a being of energy. Remember, you appear to be solid, you appear to be separate from others and source, and you appear to be mortal, when in fact your real self is consciousness, energy, soul. And we live in an energetic universe. And so we each are part of source right now. And when your soul was preparing to come to Earth, it was excited. I say it because souls are often androgynous. And so it was excited to come here. You wanted to share your greatest gifts. You wanted to learn, you grow, wanted to serve others, wanted to have adventures. And so that's why doing that is so important, because that allows you to participate in the flow of life at higher levels. Now, one more thing I would share is that prayer and intention are another powerful way to identify and then know how to start fulfilling your highest missions. Back in the day, I mean, when I was a kid, people would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, well, either a minister or a counselor or a physician. And I didn't know which. And so I started praying at some point. I would just say, thank you for helping me know how I can best assist God's plan for heaven on earth and for my life, for me to do what I came here to do. It's a simple prayer, and you can put it in your own words. But you notice that, like most prayers and most important, it wasn't one of supplication. Oh God, help me know, because I already know. I was saying, thank you. In other words, it's done. Ask and it shall be given that you knock and the door will be open to you. So I was thank you for helping me know. And then I ended up doing one after the other, and it's created such high levels of peace, joy, love, and fulfillment. I can't describe it. It's heaven on earth, even if you're in the process of passing. My Aunt Dottie was 95 years old. Wonderful woman. She is RN. And not long before she passed, we talked once a month, and I said, so Dot, what are you doing these days? I mean, do you get bored? And she said, no, I spend hours every day. I work with the Unity Prayer organization. And I spend hours each day saying prayers for people that I know or people around the world who are in need. And that gave her fulfillment. That gave her a reason for living. And that's so, so important. So I wish that for you, and I wish that for your loved ones. So let's get started. So in the upcoming sharing session, we will invite you, you don't have to say anything if you don't want, but invite you to briefly introduce yourself and tell what brought you here, what are your needs, and then share, if you want, what do you feel you're on earth to do, or what are some of the clues that came up from those 4 questions I asked? And then what are you thinking about steps? What could you do next to move in that direction? So with that, I will ask Allison and the others to set up the sharing groups, and I'll see you in about half hour for a Q&A.
So we're going to put you in a breakout room, and you will have a little button on your screen which says join. So you just hit that button when it pops up, and then with any luck, we'll get you back in about half an hour.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So first of all, pat yourself on the back, please, for taking initial steps, perhaps, or deepening, identifying and fulfilling your soul's missions. And remember that your part, you heard the 100th monkey phenomenon, or reaching the tipping point. You never know, you could be the one to help turn our world toward widespread conscious living. So again, don't underestimate the importance of your contribution, especially after 2 upcoming events next year associated with the Soul Phone Project. First of all, official announcements of scientific proof of life after death. The seminal paper has already been written. I am waiting to submit it to the Journal of Scientific Exploration, but also then public demonstrations of what we call post-material communication technology. So showing without a doubt that people who have passed on are alive well, and many of them wanting to help us heal our world and ourselves. So this is going to be mind-blowing for many people, definitely paradigm shifting. And with what you're learning from this program, you'll be more informed, prepared, grounded. You'll be able to help yourself and others. So this is another reason why what you're doing is so important. Okay, it's time to pull out that pen and paper or recording device that I mentioned earlier, because I'm going to screen share and show you some important resources that we've been mentioning. So here we are, we're on the soulproof.com website, and the first page I want to show you is articles. So here we are, home, articles. These are the top tabs. And then the article for today is number 21, Identify and Fulfill Your Highest Purposes. And please read that before you use the audio program. While we're at it, the other articles associated with this Greater Reality Healing, Living, and Helping program are 19, The Great News About the Nature of Reality, and then 72, which is the Greater Reality Living, Integrating the Great News into Your Daily Life, 82, which is Greater Reality Healing, A Higher Energy Path After Life's Toughest Changes, including anything, loved ones passing on, physical disability, financial loss, whatever it is, that's a change, but it's also a challenge and an opportunity for growth. And then 119, Greater Reality Helping Others in Our World, and finally the last one of those 8 developments for widespread conscious living now. So those are the articles I recommend. Under Shop, so here's the top tab, Shop, my 8 audiobooks, 4 of which are available, my 8 ebooks, 4 of which are available as audiobooks as well. And again, all those digital copies are free. And then 10 transformational audio programs. And the one we're going over today this very last one with the seashore, identify and fulfill your purposes. And then there's a second half to that, which I haven't mentioned in this meeting, which is and enjoy your greatest life, the greatest life you've envisioned.
Where do we
And
find that?
you in that title refers to your soul, your real self, not just your temporary part that visits on earth. The next page I want to point out is under the Greater Reality Program, top tab, and that is, so if you click on that, you get this. Here's a short video, just kind of reviews the whole program, all three aspects of it. The 5 articles I just mentioned, when meetings are, how to join the free meetings. Here's a link, or here's the Zoom information. And this is really important, a sign-up page to receive automated updates, class recordings, and suggested action steps for each key. So if you click on that, you'll see it's real simple. Your first name and your email address. Simple as that. And we never share your information with anyone. The next to last page I want to show you is how you find the videos. So we're under this Greater Reality Program top tab, and then you'll see the 3 components. So for each one, Greater Reality Healing, it has the videos. So in the healing, there's 18 30-minute videos. Again, because we're covering everything, every kind of loss / change. So there's a lot to cover. But for example, in Greater Reality Living, how to live optimally, once you know the great news, there's only 2 30-minute videos. So that's where the videos are. And then finally, recordings of past meetings. And we started in June, and here we are, the 4 that we've done so far. So now you know where to find all that information. With that base covered, let's open up to Q&A, questions about today's keys, or questions about anything at all, your biggest questions and toughest challenges. Who would like to share the first one? Nancy, I see some things bouncing around in your head, dear. Would you like to share? And those of you who don't have your video enabled, please do if you can. Love to see your face.
I was, what came to mind in pondering your question is, we just spent in our breakout room quite a bit of time. I would say we were in the I am mode.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I don't want to say anything now. Oh, I changed my mind. I'm not I am. I want to be this, and this. I mean, I don't, but anyway, that was just what you saw on my face was we all just talked about who we are, and now no. I mean, I could at some point, Mark, and I'd love to tell everybody how, what I knew before birth, things that you've talked about, my experiences in my crib, my my experiences of knowing my purpose before I knew what such a thing of being a medium or an empath or living with no skin or, those kinds of things. But I bet that will come up on another day. So thank you very much.
Well, it definitely will come up. And thank you for, well, you'd be a good promoter. We're all on the edge of our seat. So if you could just share one thing. So I'm curious, because what you're talking about is, we talked about the angel forgetfulness. For many people, they totally forget when they come to Earth the big picture of life from whence they came. But it sounds like maybe they didn't push hard enough on you, and you remembered some of it before. So just out of curiosity, what did you remember in the crib?
Oh, the crib is probably my most vivid memory of my life because it comes up all the time. Even before I was exploring these things, I would be wondering, well, maybe this proves I'm an introvert. So I'm born. I'm in my crib, not sure, but I can't walk yet. And I'm laying there in bed. I was very happy. And I remember the bumpers around me and I loved playing with my little lamb. And now I was born in 1953. So I had to be at most one. But my mom had this pattern. So I could hear in the living room my mom opening the door saying, "Oh, come on in." And the person saying, "I can't wait to see the baby." And she'd say, "Well, we'll tiptoe in there really quietly. And if she's awake, you can play with her. And if not, we'll just quietly close the door." So my mind, I mean, what an
Mhm.
attitude, was like, ugh. Here we go again. Okay, put your hands down, stop looking at your fingers, just pretend you're asleep. And
Yeah.
I'd listen for them to tiptoe in and
Wow.
then whisper how adorable I was and then tiptoe out. And when I was sure they had resigned themselves to gossiping about the neighbors or whatever, I would just open my eyes again and play.
Yeah, that what you're sharing, and thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's kind of going on a limb to share these things because you realize some people think you're lying or some people think you're crazy, but in fact, what
Oh,
you're sharing is in line with the clinical data. When children are hypnotized or sometimes they spontaneously remember, this gets into the category of what's called perinatal experiences, just before, during, or after birth. But many children who recall, again, spontaneously or under hypnosis, will describe that dual consciousness. They're frustrated. On one hand, they're a baby. They can't talk, but their real self is still thinking, and it's saying, they don't realize who I really am. They don't realize how
yeah.
much I know. And when the baby tries to explain it, it's like blah blah blah. That's all that comes out, and they're like, "Isn't she cute?" So you remembered some of that dual consciousness. How cool is that? And did that has that persisted then throughout your life to varying
Well,
degrees?
yeah, I mean, I think I started remembering those when I just would pretend I was asleep. Like if my kids wanted something or whatever. I mean, I hope we've all done that. Or what's interesting is just a couple days ago. Now it's a very vivid memory, but I don't have it nearly as often as the crib. I was remembering being at the neighbor's house across the street on my mom's lap in a little dress. So I was probably two. And they were eating fried chicken and she gave me a leg, but I was super quiet and I don't remember what my mom and the neighbor were talking about. Again, I always refer to it as gossip, and I am so, no, we don't talk about other people. I'm 72 now and I'm still like, no. But anyway, so I'm sitting on my mom's lap and I'm eating the chicken, and the neighbor is saying something. She said, "Well, I probably shouldn't say that in front of Nancy." And my mom was like, "Oh, she doesn't know anything. She's just a baby." And I remember thinking, wow, can I get away with a lot when they think I don't hear what's going on? So
Nice.
anyway, thank
Well,
you.
thank you again for sharing because that gives other people permission to recall um, awareness of both sides of their self, their human side, but also their eternal side. So
Really?
thanks again,
Okay.
dear one. I look forward to
Oh,
more in the
interesting.
future. Well, let's see what Brother
Thank you.
Andrew has to share with us now.
Good afternoon, everyone. We didn't have much time to talk about a lot of the stuff in the breakout rooms. Just something I want to raise with everybody. I feel as if my life lessons can be summed up in 4 words. So I just want to throw that across to everybody. Compassion, humility, patience, and most important, forgiveness.
Hmm.
I just want to know if every, and I just feel as if things that I've gone through, experiences I've gone through in life, mirror back those 4 words.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like the things that everything that's come, the things I go through, they're kind of like things that I need to learn in this, in this life. And I don't know if reincarnation links with that, if we have to come back and learn our lessons. I mean, it's a big topic. I just feel those are things that I personally need to learn. And I wonder
Hmm.
if anybody wants to sort of anyone has any sort of words or one word maybe that they feel they're here for, maybe forgiveness or whatever. Just throw that open to everybody.
Yeah, thank you for that. We'll see what Gail has to ask first, but if there are no other questions, yeah, it's a great exercise. But I'd like to comment that, I mean, you always impress the heck out of me. We've never met, but you know, we have for like 6 or 8 months by Zoom. You're the kind we need more of on Earth. But Michael Newton, in his work, he said that even though when you look at everything that happened throughout your life, it can seem so complex and busy, there's so much. He said, actually, souls will distill it down, and there were 3 or 4 primary reasons they came to Earth, and that's really what it's all about. If you look at the essence, and you just came up with those. So, super job. Gail, you have a question, dear?
Well, I wanted, first of all, to thank you, Mark, for having these meetings. This is my first time attending. I had no idea there were so many like-minded people talking about what I consider the most important things. I just want to say, I feel like the theme of my life is love, like both negatively and positively. I have struggled my entire life to feel loved. Mainly because I grew up with a British father who was very frightened of his emotions, and I was a very emotional kid, which led to, the dynamic where I would get emotional and he would like push me away or tease me or, do something to make me get away from him. And I just grew up feeling like there was something really wrong with me and I was inherently unlovable. And it took years of just being so angry at him. But eventually I had an awakening experience where I saw him not as this figure of oppression and, with a withholding father, but I saw him in his totality as someone who was not allowed to have emotions. And, I just felt like my anger dissolved and I just felt a flood of compassion for him. And since then, I feel like I see everyone struggle, like anyone who is being annoying or, I just see that they too are struggling. And I feel like my purpose, and I don't know how to act on it. This is the the logistical part that hasn't come together for me yet. Is I was telling my group, I feel like everything that is wrong in the world, it's because there is a lack of love. Like people today who on policy levels or who support a cruel administration, they do it. They want other people to suffer because they themselves do not feel sufficiently loved. So I am trying to figure out, like, how can I, as a person, beyond, loving the people that I contact every day, is there some bigger way for me to help people feel loved? And I welcome all suggestions about this. And I actually had like a moment in the exercise that we did together in the meditation where I felt like I've done things very directly, free hugs and things where I'm like, I'm here to love you. And people, don't necessarily respond to that. But I thought about when you're talking about like being of service, I thought about this retired gentleman who opened a little repair shop where he invited people to bring anything that needed repair and he would repair it for free. And eventually, not just did it become popular as a place to bring things, but other people joined him who were also willing to repair things for free. And it became like this community. And I kind of feel like they were repairing things, but really they were repairing themselves and the people too. And I thought maybe that's what I need, like something that is less obvious, like.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, first of all, welcome. I look forward to hearing because, again, with the community theme, I mean, we may reach a point where there aren't so many questions, but as Andrew brought up, we can continue the sharing with the whole group. But 2 articles I suggest for you regarding your dad. Sometimes people who play limiting or difficult roles in our life are actually soul mates, and they're doing that by design. It's called contrast souls. because it's known what will help you break out your shell or awake and so on. So that's article number 67. And it's beautiful how you then expanded your view from your dad to everybody else. And one of my mottos is, we're all out there doing the best we know to do at the time. And it's true, you know, it's not easy being on this planet. The other article is number 66, which is called Relationships for More Evolved People. And so, you know, what you said when you got, I had no idea there were other people that were interested in what you consider to be most important. And so it's important to grow your tribe. In an article number 66, I described where I've found over the years most more evolved people tend to congregate. And then so you can meet with them and see, are any of them doing the theme that you're envisioning now? You know, how can you spread love? And of course, it starts with self-love. Many people who are bitter and divisive and judgmental, they don't love themselves. And then go down a layer deeper than that is, many people feel abandoned. Eben Alexander, MD, who had the profound near-death experience, and I were discussing that the primary wound for many people is feelings of abandonment, not just their parents, but even more so because religion has done such a horrible job, and so many people feel abandoned by a creator or don't even believe there's a creator because of such schizoid teachings. And so it's important to realize, and this is one of the items of the great news, that we each are one with the one, part of Source right now, you know, not maybe someday. So for myself, if I were to go about how can we promote more love, have people be more loving, love themselves, to me, I consider a core part of this to realize who they really are, their sacred core nature. Well, go get them, girl. Big mission.
I'll report back.
Tara Lynn, you're up next, please.
Yeah, my mind was all over the place for a minute. I knew what I was going to say, but everything that I guess I want to expound on, you know, Gail was just saying a lot of what I was feeling, and Andrew had me going. Andrew, I knew some of this stuff was resonating about what we talked about in group. And I had that premise of just, you know, about love. You get to that point where you know it's about love. But I also shared when he was talking about compassion and forgiveness. I mean, I'm at a place of forgiveness. I wasn't seeking to forgive or anything like that. I know when I was younger, I probably didn't think about it. You know, you're wild. I call it the 3D world. You're, you know, doing whatever, not thinking about it. I think all of us here, like comedians, have had a lot of pain, come from you know, and experiences in our life dealing with death or narcissism and abusive people, drugs, alcoholism, a number of things that have us soul searching more or less. But when I got older, I soon realized, as Gail was saying, that my parents, I soon realized I didn't need to look at my parents like parents. They were individual human beings with their own struggles. I noticed that they made mistakes. They had desires. They had dreams. They were all screwed up like the rest of us, you know, and just trying to find their way. And so anything that came down on me was just, you know, par for the course, per se. But anyway, so I got to where I didn't blame them anymore in that respect. And even with my ex-husband, I'm now happily married, by the way, and have been for a while, but he was abusive. He was an alcoholic. He was a narcissist. I mean, he was a batterer. It was a terrible, his adult children did not ever, you know, they didn't even speak to him anymore when he died. But you know, the thing was, when he died, he committed suicide after our son died. But when he died, I actually shed tears over it. And I remember my older son said, I don't want to use his language, but he told me, don't cry over that so-and-so, you know, don't cry over him. But I had that compassion for him. I didn't look at him. Maybe if I was in my 20s and 30s, I'd have been, oh, good, that bastard's dead or something, you know. But, you know, he was this kind of person. But I wasn't like that at all. It was my heart hurt that he was so lost, that his soul was in such torment, that this would happen to him. And I could feel nothing but compassion for him. Nice. And weirdly, I kind of get why people feel the way they do. but there's this understanding that I have to let go of because it's so complicated that that there's a place they're not at yet because they can't even relate to how I could even shed one tear over him. People would say, after all he did to you, how can you forgive this man? It's easy.
Good.
It's easy. And it's just,
Nice.
it was automatic. So love to me, you find compassion, and with compassion, you find forgiveness. And it just kind of all falls into place if you just open yourself up and let it. I guess that's.
Wow, powerful stuff. Yeah, and of course you get the most out of it when you forgive and let go, and how much better that feels. One thing to help you and everyone else is that we have good clinical evidence that about 85% of people on Earth right now are beginner souls. And so some of them, this could be their first time around the block, and they're just learning basic lessons. And perhaps your husband is like that, or perhaps a contrast soul. But yeah, beginner souls, they just kind of have to learn the hard way. And more advanced souls, intermediate and highly evolved, will actually volunteer to be hurt by the beginner souls to give them a chance to learn how not to be. So that's how beautiful life is set up. And it is all about love. And the more we know that, the more it becomes this exciting, wonderful adventure. I love your background, by the way. It reminds me of some of my favorite movies, Lord of the Rings and all those. That's beautiful.
Well, I want to tell these people I heard saying struggling to raise their vibration. I'm not mentioning any names, but just go barefoot in the woods and do that more often, and you'll raise your vibration. Just give it time.
Exactly. Well, thank you. Well, that's a great note to wrap up on. We're almost at the end of our hour and a half. So again, please read article number 21, use the audio program, and then share next meeting about your experiences. Also, we hope that you'll tell others and bring them along. We have moderators in place to handle many more people than this, so thanks for telling others. And next month, the theme is going to be, the key is going to be 4 lies that have scared and hurt many people, and how knowing the big picture of life improves every part of your earthly experience. So be sure to join us for that. So to close, I'd like to share a slightly paraphrased statement from one of my most special teachers, Joseph Campbell. And this is in article number 21, so you don't have to worry about jotting it down. But it's this: when you follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there the whole while, just waiting for you. And then the life you ought to be living becomes the one you are living. So that's one I wrote down many years ago and I've read so many times. Powerful. So enjoy the bliss, let it shine, and we'll see you soon. God bless.